Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that, I think the Boers were very stupid, honestly. I didn't think they were very clever. I think you give them too much credit.
Oh, yeah?
And they told me to F off. The Irish said to me, F off.
No, you can say fuck off.
Yeah.
No one knows what F off means.
Then I went to Ireland.
You can just say fuck off.
Everyone knows what F off means dead. Is there a bank that we can trust? I mean, we're told Time Bank is owned by Motsepe, but...
No, but it still has to use the big bank system.
Oh.
So ultimately, you have to use the system, you see. So this is the problem, sir.
How come they've never used law enforcement against you? Because they tried to do that.
Because what have I done wrong? They admit we've done nothing wrong. They want to sell off the state-owned enterprises. SAA was sold for 51 rand. Come on.
Hinda, Barimene, ladies and gentlemen, today's guest, you might not know him, but it doesn't matter because he's filthy rich. That's all you need to know.
And you've interacted with his stuff, his work. That's all that matters.
Please welcome Dr. Iqbal Survé. Hinda. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, MacG.
Good, man. I was checking up on you. So on Wikipedia, it says, this is what it says about you, right? It says Dr. Iqbal Survé is a South African entrepreneur, medical doctor, and philanthropist. He's the chairman of Sekubanjalo Investment Holdings, a diversified investment firm based in Cape Town, and the executive chairman of Independent Media, one of South Africa's largest media companies.
Yeah.
Is it missing anything there?
A lot, but that's okay to start off with,
Yeah.
That's what we want to cover.
Yeah, I think, why didn't they mention that you were Mandela's doctor? Because I think that's very profound.
No. That's not correct, you see. I wasn't Mandela's doctor. I was a confidant of Mandela at the time. And most people assume because I'm a doctor, I'm Mandela's doctor. Yeah. But I was very close to him.
Yeah.
But during the days of the struggle, I was called the struggle doctor.
Yeah.
That was my title. Yeah. The struggle doctor was because... I did a couple of things, in the bad old days when the MK guerrillas, and sometimes, in fact, I can tell you the story about, one of the PAC guerrillas as well. When they got shot, they couldn't go to the hospitals because if they arrived there, the cops would arrest them. So there was a group of us, doctors and nurses, that used to stitch them up in the middle of the night. So I had the security police raid my surgery many times, looking for, evidence. Because had they found evidence that we had treated the guerrillas that were shot, they would have, sort of taken away my medical license. So that was the one reason I was called the struggle doctor. The other one was that a lot of the political prisoners were traumatized. As a result of torture,
of course,
long periods in detention. And one of the things when they came out, it was very difficult to adjust. So when people are put through such massive trauma, it really affects you. It's like, anything happening today, for example, if you go through trauma. So I started the program on psychological rehabilitation for the, what I wouldn't call them the victims, but they were victims of torture, and all of those kind of things. So it was that combination of things that resulted in this term, the struggle doctor, during those years.
So when do you meet Mandela? First time you met him?
So when I met Madiba was when he came out of prison. So I was part of the group of doctors that on the day that he came out had to make sure that he wasn't assassinated.
Okay.
Yeah, so in case he was assassinated, there were a couple of us that were close by. So I was with him, for instance, at the City Hall, when he gave the famous speech on his release.
Beautiful speech.
The day before my birthday, by the way.
Wow.
It was February 11th, 1990. I'm on February the 12th.
Yeah.
So I always say it was my best birthday gift ever.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And when you meet him, do you meet him at Robben Island or that's the first time you meet him?
No, that was the first time, yeah. That was the first time. There was a time, which I guess is a bit off the record, but just prior to his release, I was very close to Winnie. And there was some discussions that took place and we had planned to visit him at Victor Verster. But there was more to get information to actually send outside. And that was one of the things I did. When I was at Grootskie Hospital, for instance, with the world's first heart, I'm a medical doctor, so where the world's first heart transplant was done. A lot of the political prisoners came to Grootskie Hospital, and what we used to do is get information from them, and they came off the island, and send that information to the guys in exile to basically give them a sense of what's going on. But that was a different life, different times. Today is very different.
Did you ever treat Mandela, perform anything?
Or? No, I was not his doctor per se. I mean, but he would sometimes ask me things, as a doctor, especially if he had one or two things here and there. But he had his own group of doctors.
So you never did prostate cancer on him? Or
No. There were guys that did that. He had his own. He had his own team that did that prior to him becoming president. And when he became president, he had his the Surgeon General, of the army normally takes over. But a good friend of mine, he subsequently, a VJ, he subsequently looked after Madiba. So we were very close and we shared information or things like that, yeah.
Take me back to that era, that time. What was going on in your life during apartheid? Him being arrested and then him, being released and then you're there. What were you doing in between that time?
Look, I didn't think we would see freedom in our lifetime. I really didn't think so. I came from humble beginnings. I was not someone that was, born into a wealthy family.
Of course, yeah.
And I was a very good public speaker. And only because I was a very good public speaker, I became the president of the SRC. And because of that, I became politicized. And because I became politicized, I was part of what is called the Committee of 81, which was the student movement. So it was after 76. This was in 1980. Now, if you remember anything about 1980, you'd remember that the student movement had huge union boycotts, this and all these kind of things. So it was a very politicization process. But what impacted on me tremendously is when I saw poverty. I was poor, but not as poor as some of the people that I really saw in the townships. And I remember going to this play. I'll never forget it. It was called We Shall Sing for the Fatherland by Zakes Mda and Guguletu. And we were in this house and there was this fire in the middle. And, it's a very political school I was at. And I looked at this thing and I said, shit, you know what? This country... No, man, and that really politicized me.
Yes,
that made me become an activist, and it changed life for me in a very serious way, because I was part of then the student movement with Azaso, Sansco on the executive. I was part of the ANC, of course, and I was part of the fight, but mostly in the area of the medical area, because that was my expertise when I became a doctor. It's about, the helping people, but also about the psychological rehabilitation. So,
in hindsight, when we got freedom, when Mandela was released, do you think the comrades were ready to lead the country when you look back?
Look, it was a different time. Every period has the right leadership for it. Madiba, there's a lot of criticism of Madiba, but I don't think that criticism is valid. If you knew him, he was a very strong person. He had very strong views. And we always understood that from that time, there was a period we had to consolidate. But if you ask me, has the leadership today
carried on,
picked up the mantle of Madiba? Absolutely not. It's horrific. In fact, people say to me, Doc, you're the only guy that took Mandela seriously, that took what he said seriously and lives that, whereas other people don't. So, no, I think Mandela did the right thing at the time. And lots of the other people that suffered along with Madiba, it wasn't just Madiba, of course. But I think the current leadership, honestly, in the ANC and the government, has lost completely track with the people in this country.
We've had freedom for how many years now? So 30 years, yeah? Almost 30, since then.
Almost, yeah.
And where the country is now, has anything changed? What's the difference between now and apartheid? Is apartheid gone? What's your take on that?
So we've got political freedom, but it's a mirage. in very many ways. You know, we don't have economic freedom. And what's happened in the last, I would say, couple of years, is particularly the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen the old apartheid structures re-emerge, whether it is in capital, whether it is in the intelligence services, whether it is in the media, and effectively take
Intelligence services?
Absolutely.
No way.
Our intelligence services they've reintegrated the guys that used to be working for the old apartheid structures.
No way.
100%. 100%.
But those guys were good at their job.
For the apartheid system, maybe not, but it doesn't mean that they should be here with us today. It's nonsense.
Why do you say they were good at their job?
Well, technically, because, I mean, they could trace down the ANC in exile and all the other parties who are operating underground, and they were efficient. They were racist, but they were efficient. So maybe for their expertise.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that, you know. I think the Boers were very stupid, honestly. I didn't think they were very clever. I think you give them too much credit.
Oh, yeah?
I think that for the amount of resources, the amount of support they had internationally.
Oh, yes.
No, I think they were very stupid. They had one clever guy in Niels Barnard. Yeah. He was very clever. He was a professor, and they brought him in to head up the NIS. But if you look at it in reality, you know, with the amount of resources and wealth, you know, South Africa was a very wealthy country. If you go back to the origin of diamonds and gold, the wealth of the Oppenheimers, the Ruperts, etc., you know, these guys had an enormous amount of wealth. And so the government was in a kind of quasi-partnership with them. It was said, okay, you guys take parts of the economy along with Afrikaner capital, but we'll take care of the politics, right? And that's actually what's happened. And that entire system has emerged today. You've got Ramaphosa, who's really a proxy you know, at the end of the day for white capital. You know, I've said it publicly, I've said it before. And of course, it's sad because ordinary South Africans are suffering today. Ordinary South Africans, you know, are not reaping the benefits.
I mean, you saw when we were driving here, the poverty. Did you see?
No, poverty is everywhere. You know, everywhere. You look at the end of the day. This is a beautiful country.
Amazing.
It's got amazing resources, and if we are prepared to use it, you know, for the country's people, it will really create one of the top countries in the world. We can become the Singapore of Africa, right? If we do that. The problem is that white capital is very conservative. And all they're thinking about is how they, you know, increase their wealth or maintain their wealth at the expense of the majority of the population. And they are pervasive everywhere. If you look at the media, they control the media except for you, except for me.
Yes.
For our media. They don't control us, but they control everything else. If you look at the banks, they control the banks. If you look at the politicians, the biggest funders these days of the political parties is white capital. If you look at the intelligence services, I mean, we have a presidency here where the first time in our democratic history, there is no Minister of Intelligence on its own. The intelligence services is in the president's office.
That's crazy.
So we're heading increasingly towards a junta state, a mafia state. And look at the cybersecurity. You know, you can't just say anything on social media anymore.
Yeah.
You'll be taken to jail.
Of course.
In fact, you have to get careful even what you say on this platform.
Yeah, of course.
Because you can be arrested, you can be sued, you know. So we're living at a very different time. This is not what Madiba fought for. This is not what Kathy fought for. This is not what Goff fought for. So people like us, we have to take the fight to these, because no one else will. The current leadership won't, certainly of the ANC.
I want to ask you, are you into football?
Very much so. Very much so.
You want to ask something?
Yeah. Before we continue to the football, how has the white capital-owned media come for you? Because you've come for them in terms of competition and being independent. Surely you haven't come this far without any resistance or attacks from them.
No.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get into that, dog. That's the meat of the interview.
Oh, we're going to get
We're going to deep dive into that.
I shall wait.
Ram's hands.
Do you like football?
I love football.
You love football,
I
right?
like soccer.
Listen to this, right? So these are some of the benefits Neymar is going to receive because he just signed to Saudi Arabia.
I saw that.
Jeez, right?
Yeah, crazy,
Listen to this, right? He's going to get a house with 25 bedrooms.
Yeah.
He's going to get a 40 by 10 meter swimming pool and 3 saunas. He's going to get five full-time staff for his house, a Bentley, an Aston Martin, a Lamborghini, a 24-hour driver. All bills for his hotels, restaurants, and various services during his off days will be sent to the club headquarters to be paid, right? He's going to get a private plane. He's going to get 500,000 for each social media post that promotes Saudi Arabia.
Jeez.
And then he's also going to get 100 million I think it's dollars or euros.
Dollars, probably dollars.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Still a lot.
A year on salary, right? Now, if you look at the Saudis, all they have is oil.
Yeah.
We have everything.
Yeah.
Why can't we get to this? What happened? Why couldn't we get to this level? Because we have all the minerals, you know.
And also, there was a random Fabinho. He was just coming out of a game. He plays in Saudi Arabia as well.
Got a Rolex.
And a fan. Now, this is not government money. Well, it's a private individual. Gave him a Rolex. Yeah. So what he's asking is, why can't we get to that level?
Where did we get it wrong?
Where the average person is a millionaire.
Because they just have oil, bro.
One resource.
Everything.
On the back of one resource.
Well, let me tell you this. If you go back 30 years or more, our economy was much, much bigger than Saudi Arabia. We're one of the largest economies in the world. And if you know that. South Africa had all the gold. So there was to be a gold standard before they moved from the gold standard to the dollar. The problem with our country right now is that the ownership of this economy, 90% of it rests with the same people that owned this economy during apartheid. Those people are not interested in the people of this country. And therefore, they will not invest. They're not patriotic to our country. They want to stay here. They want to live here. But they're not, we've invested. In the last couple of years, I've invested 5 billion. We employ 8,500 people, 40,000 dependents. We've invested in this country because I love my country. I believe the best way to provide dignity is to have employment.
How much money is leaving our country?
Capital flight is literally in the hundreds of billions over the last few years. If you look at Naspers, right? Ramaphosa made a pact with Naspers. Naspers took out 1 trillion rand out of this country in the last 4 years.
No way.
Of course, the pact was, you allow us to go and list on the Dutch exchange, allowing us to take 1 trillion rand out. In exchange, we'll give you News 24 to run your propaganda campaign. And so Ramaphosa's, the person who worked for him, Puti, lovely woman, Mandela, is now, most people don't know, she is the head of Naspers South Africa, running the propaganda arm for Ramaphosa in News 24. So most people don't realize that, right? But at the end of it, at the back of all of that, are still the same people, the Afrikaners. Why is Naspers called Naspers? Naspers was Nasionale Pers, the National Party of South Africa. It was the media arm of the apartheid state. So what's happening over here right now is that capital is not interested in to invest in you, other younger people, in this country, because they don't have a passion for this country. I'm not saying whites. Please, you must, I'm very clear. I'm saying, you see, South Africa as economy is dominated by a few families of conservative capital.
Fuck me.
And I think that's what we must understand. And that capital controls News 24, Daily Maverick, The Citizen. It funds the other media houses, ENCA. You want to name it. Most of the radio stations that are commercial, like your Prime Media.
Yeah, of course.
Just go and see. Look at the ownership patterns of the media in this country right now. It's controlled by the very same people that benefited during apartheid and who control 90% of the economy today.
So can you give us the structure of the country right now? Who's really our president?
Look, the president is Ramaphosa, and we always have to respect the president of a country because we have to respect democracy. So whatever happens, We have to do that. However, it doesn't mean that we can't criticize him.
But what's the hierarchy? What does it look like?
The hierarchy is, if you look at Ramaphosa's CR17 campaign, he was funded by the white establishment. All his commissions are headed by whites. He gives a lot of to white capital. I want to emphasize this. There's a lot of white people, as with black people, who are not benefiting from the current status quo. This current status quo is benefiting conservative capital elites. This is what is happening right now. And Ramaphosa, look, if you look at his history, he was very close to the Urban Foundation set up by Johan Rupert and Harry Oppenheimer. He was very close to the Oppenheimers. We all know all of that in the mining side. He was very close in terms of Jonik, etc. So that is his natural gravitation, is to go towards them, because he really believes that they can save this country. He doesn't understand, and those around him don't understand, that this country can become great if you give the youth of this country the opportunity to actually get involved in this country.
Where were all these people during Zuma and the Gupta era?
Look, I think Zuma had strengths and weaknesses. We have to accept that. And the Guptas was a big weakness of Zuma. We must accept it. I was one of the few guys that was prepared to fight the Guptas. And the Guptas hated me more than anyone else. But I did so but I also liked JZ, as much as I liked Madiba, Thabo. At the end of the day, I always believe you must support the president of your country, because if you believe in democracy, then whoever it is, tomorrow Julius becomes the president, I'll be the first to support him.
But where were these guys during Zuma's reign?
No, they were there, but they were underground. I say the capital formations, the intelligence guys, the Boers, as we call them in general, were very clever. They had a 30-year strategy. And the 30-year strategy was, let's stay underground and at the right time emerge. And of course, Zuma's mess up with the Guptas gave them the opportunity, because they said to themselves, you know what, if these bloody Indians from India can come and control a president or influence a president, why can't we, who have all this money, make sure that the next president is our president? And hence they funded Ramaphosa. It's not a secret, come on. The CR17 bank statement, which our media was the only media was prepared to put it on the front pages, showed. The CR17 bank statement showed that Ramaphosa's funders was, in fact, these capital formations. So now they have the man in the high office. And everything flows from the presidency. Once you have him, you take control of intelligence, you take control of the military, they have the media, they have the capital, they have the banks, they have everything. So, we are back to pre-1994. It's a very depressing situation.
Yeah, man.
But in the midst of all of that, there has to be hope. And the hope lies, with people like you, MacG, and young people, because you must not allow these people to dictate our future. Yes, I'm now 60, but I've done my bit, but I'll continue to fight. I'm the biggest target of the establishment today because, one, I was the BRICS Business Council chairman, which means my alignment was towards a non-aligned world. I didn't believe you must have Western hegemony or, Eastern hegemony. But like Mandela, the non-aligned movement, we should go there. I've built a huge business with others. I've employed a large number of people. We have huge capital resources. And they tried everything to try and bring us down. It hasn't worked. But because they realize we have the resources to be able to expose through the media what they're doing, they know we have the resources to support young people like yourselves and others who want a different future for this country.
Let's go back to the Arabs. Where do the Arabs get it right that we're not getting right?
Look, there's some things they get right and some things they get wrong.
Okay.
Let's be fair about it.
Yeah.
I can speak because I was the chairman of the South Africa-Saudi Arabia Business Council for 12 years, appointed by President Thabo Mbeki at the time. So my counterparts were some of the leading people in Saudi Arabia. What they've gone wrong, in a way, is that they don't have democracy as we know it, because it's in a way an autocratic state. What they've gotten right is that they focused on what they're good at, which is getting oil out of the ground. But if you look at the UAE, for instance, they're talking about a $6 trillion economy over time, right? Which is massive. And they're doing it by creating the right environment, investing. The most important thing is to invest in your country. If your own capital does not invest in your country, why should foreigners come and invest here? You know, Ramaphosa has all these fancy investment conferences. You show me one investment that has come into our country to create jobs. None. It's all just show and tell, right? But it's only if you invest. We've invested, substantially. As I told you, we've invested about 5 billion into creating jobs, increasing employment. 90% of our employee base is Black and African majority. We've created career pathways for young people.
So they invested back into the country, the Arabs.
That's what they did. Absolutely. They're busy. If you look at the Neom City example, they're spending about between $500 and $700 billion to build a 34-kilometer city called Neom in Saudi Arabia, right? A 34-kilometer, that's a straight line, right? Now that is more than the South African GDP. And 10 times more than the South African budget. One project, right? They prepared to think about the future. Now, the problem over here is that you need to have a president and a leadership that believes in this country and its people and believes, frankly speaking, in Black people. If you don't believe in Black people, then you're not going to invest in this country. Then you're going to have capital leaving this country. Then you're going to see what's happening now. Hundreds of billions have left this country. And it's not about Black or white, because both Black and white in our country have a right to live here.
Yes, of course.
And we must respect that. And lots of white people do not benefit. What we must understand, it is the elite at the very, very top that are benefiting from the system. There's a proxy relationship between three. Think of it like a triangle. On the one side is the politicians, and the ANC has sold its soul to the devil. Then you've got capital, which is the big business of capital, right? And then you've got the media and intelligence. So all of that is what we are experiencing today. And if we're not careful, that grouping is going to manage and control this country for the next 30 years. You see, if they can tackle a guy like me, they can tackle anybody. And look what have the banks done to us. They tried everything to tarnish my name, tarnish my reputation. They've done it for years because I'm independent-minded. As Julius Malema says, Iqbal's not part of the Stellenbosch mafia. That's why, they tackle him. So they tried everything, but they also control all the banks. 6 banks. Control 5 trillion, 90% of this economy. And who controls those banks? Look at them, unpack it. Absa, FNB, Rupert.
And Malema's son can't even open a bank account.
Yeah. Well, the point is this. If they don't like you, if you say something they don't like, if you compete against them, if you're outspoken, they can shut your bank account. Can you imagine how you can survive, MacG, without a bank account?
There's not much in my account, but still, I won't survive.
Even if you've got nothing, you need a bank account for your advertisers, to buy things, to pay for your daily things, man, for food and these things, right? So they're quite clever. So they use the banks against you. What do the banks say? This is interesting. The banks say, well, Dr. Survé, we know you've done nothing wrong. You've never been involved in corruption, money laundering, da-da. They say this in writing, by the way. But then they say, we're shutting your accounts because of reputational. What reputation? Well, actually, because your media that you fund as the banks, that the shareholders of the banks fund, have written 3,000 articles about me. Something may have nothing to do with me. Tomorrow, I can assure you, there's going to be a headline in Daily Maverick. MacG Survé appears on MacG's show. And they'll say something negative about you,
of course,
and about me.
And let's track back a bit, because you started Sekunjalo Holdings,
with
right?
Other struggle activists.
100%, right? And
with 250,000, right?
100%. And you've now accumulated more than 200 companies. Yeah. You've employed more than 10,000 people, 40,000 external, or whatever the case may be, right? And everything was running smooth until 2013.
Correct.
When you wanted to acquire independent media, which you had to go to Ireland to get from the Irish.
Correct.
And then the smear campaign started.
Then it started. So until 2013, we did everything right. We won the most awards than any other company. We're the only black group that listed 3 companies on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. The only black group, even up to today. Right? Suddenly, we say, okay, you know what? Let's buy the media to tell the story of Africans, our communities, where we come from. Because Africans are not just, as the other media tries to make us, corrupt and this and that.
Barbaric.
Intellectuals, we are sports, we are artists, we are business people, entrepreneurs, media, etc., etc. So my daughter was the one that said to me, Dad, you know what? We see so much diversity in our home in Cape Town, people coming from all over. Why do the newspapers not reflect the country as it should be? And so we started this journey to see if we could buy the Cape Times, which is the Cape Town newspaper. And they told me to F off. The Irish said to me, F off.
No, you can say fuck off. No one knows what F off means.
Then I went to Ireland.
You can just say fuck off.
Everyone knows what F off means dead.
And when I announced that we are going to buy independent media, my God, I didn't understand. You can touch anything. Don't touch the media. The media is theirs. And independent media was theirs. And of course, when I came in, it was largely a lily white organization. So I transformed it. I mean, I appointed in the Cape Times history, for instance, 150-year history. They never, ever had an African editor. I appointed the first young African editor, Siam Zanzi. He was 26 when I appointed him. When I appointed him, Business Day and others criticized me. They said, see, this Dr. Survé doesn't know what he's doing. He's appointing this young guy. He went on 2 years ago to become the World Young Editor of the Year by the International News Media Association.
Wow.
So this is the kind of transformation that I've done within all of the organizations we've acquired. So when we acquire a company, right? And so, of course, what these people accused me of is being anti-white and purging white. It's rubbish. I was simply saying everybody's welcome in our group, but it's a meritocracy, and we take away the glass ceiling. Just because you're black or you're a woman, we don't allow these glass ceilings to exist. We give people the opportunity to actually realize their potential. Now, you see what I've done. We've created success with mainly black people in our organization. And this is not what the guys like the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers and others want you to see. They don't want to see black success because that goes against the narrative which they've been running for decades, that black people can't have success, right? You're a great example of a successful entrepreneur. Maybe you've left the establishment or the establishment left you. But either way, you went out there. But it's hard. It's hard because you need to have advertising. You need to do this.
Yeah. I mean,
all of these things.
Before we started the show, I said we have so much synergies with what you did with Sekunjala. Here you are. You're trying to start a company predominantly black with morals, dignity, everything that a company should have, right? With no support from the government, you started from scratch. Which is pretty much what we did on the podcast. I mean, I started with, the story has been documented for years and whatever, right? And when I started, it was literally just out of pure hobby, passion. I love broadcasting, boom, boom, boom. Here's a gap. I just want to give you context before I ask my next question, right? So here's an opportunity. I see it, boom, boom, get in, right? And we were cruising, bro. Like everything was fine. Views were going up. Subscriber count was going up. We're creating our content that we love. And then all of a sudden, we started to maybe have an effect, maybe not as big as an independent media would, like your company that you have, in advertising, right? And I've seen this rule book play along like all over the world. You know, they did the same thing to your company, Andrew Tate, where mainstream media will throw words. Hopefully one of them will stick. So what we started seeing is that they started saying we're homophobic, we're misogynistic, blah, 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 whatever, which obviously the main aim was to turn advertisers against us, which they did. Because when we were going through backlash, no advertiser would touch us, you know, because of the misinformation that the mainstream media was feeding people. And it got so bad that it actually filtered down to even guests. So even guests that we wanted to get wouldn't come on because of what they read on News 24, whatever. Like if you go back, bro, News 24 has never written a good article about us. Zero. I remember they even wrote an article where they said, if you are tired of listening to MacG,
which is Media 24.
Yeah. Here are the other podcasts that you can listen to. And they were all white. All white. Radio stations were paying influencers to cancel us. Like, it was a shit show, right?
I mean, there were awards, content creators awards were not even nominated. Best podcasts went to other people. Meanwhile, it's clear that who the best podcast is in South Africa.
So at that time, we were affected revenue-wise because no advertisers were coming on board based on the misinformation, right? But luckily, we were fortunate enough that we have a strong base, which is the chillers. So they kept us supporting us. They kept us going.
Yeah.
My question then becomes, why doesn't the establishment want black people to own a media house?
Because, very simple, if you have a contested narrative, you give people the opportunity to make up their minds and to decide what they think is right or wrong. If you can block out a narrative and paint a narrative in a certain way, then you can control every other aspect of the society. You can control the economy, you can control intelligence, you can control the politics. So the media narrative is absolutely critical. You see, what happened to you, MacG, was what I call a psychosocial warfare. So when the system comes for you, they really will come for you. They'll tarnish your name.
Which they have.
They'll tarnish they'll put a photo of you that makes you look very ugly.
Yeah.
They'll make you
they did that, so they don't do that.
Yeah.
You know what was crazy? You know what they would do, right? They'd go, they'd write an article and say, Tweeps are angry at MacG podcast for saying something, right?
Yeah.
And they go to a tweet. Now, in that tweet, underneath, if you read it, there's about 100 comments. Let's just say 100 comments. 90 of them are positive, but they'll focus on the 10. Yeah. And then the headline becomes Tweeps hate the podcast because of X, Y, and Z.
Exactly what they do.
You know what I mean?
See, and the reason why they can do that is because they're well-funded. If you take the Daily Maverick, for instance, recently there was all this thing about them being funded by the CIA, okay? But they're also funded by the Oppenheimers. They're also funded by Rupert's. They're also funded by Wendy Applebaum, the three wealthiest families in South Africa today. Most people don't know that. They receive hundreds of millions every year, the Daily Maverick. And they can produce such a product because of this amount of funding. So funding is the key over here. News 24 is the old National Party. And I mean, they've got Naspers, which has got the investment in Tencent. They can spend tens of billions. I mean, look at this issue with Ramaphosa and the, the Pala. All of us know this guy from Sudan was complete bullshit, right? I mean, come on. What guy from Sudan comes the day before Christmas to go and buy, bulls? It's bullshit. Stuff. That's what it is, right? But if you look at how News 24 ran this thing about this guy with his Gucci clothes in Dubai and his Gucci wife, I mean, they created fake news, but because they've got so much money and power, they can do this kind of
How did they attack you when you started?
The problem for them is I've done nothing wrong. So they have enormous difficulty, but what they do is they will throw stuff at you. They will say this, they will say that. They'll throw commissions at you. They will... psychosocial warfare is what McCarthyism did in the USA. It's a CIA playbook of how you attack your opponents. You don't attack them because they've done something wrong. You attack them because you create the perception that they've done something wrong. So in the public eye, it's not about the detail. It's about the headline. So if you look at a photograph of me in News 24, if you look at a photograph of me in Daily Maverick or Amapungani or all of these places, etc., you'll see a very, guy that's very, very serious. I mean, I'm a fun-loving guy. I love people. I mean, I'm a people's person at the end of the day. But the way they project you.
You love making babies. I mean, you got a 6-month-old that's 60.
Well, I mean, I think it's a gift, Really. It's a gift,
rock. It's a gift to rock.
It's a gift, And it's a beautiful gift, man.
Yeah.
I left the house this morning and I almost missed my flight. Do you know why? I couldn't say goodbye to her.
Yeah.
Her name's Sophia, right? It was just.
But they won't show that. They won't show that.
Never show. You see, you see, what did they do during the slave trade? What did they do? The colonialists. They dehumanized us. Where did the slaves come from predominantly? It came from Africa, and it came from the eastern countries, right? That's where the slaves came from. The Dutch from Malaysia, Indonesia, and from Africa. And how did they make slavery acceptable to the world? By dehumanizing the Africans, by making Africans appear that we are not human, you see, that we don't have feelings, we don't have family, we can't think, we are not beautiful people. And that is what they're doing to us today. If they can do it to me, they can do it to anybody. Because I'm a guy that I don't take any shit from these guys, right? I take them on.
Was it hard for you to acquire independent media? Were there any hurdles?
Enormous hurdles. They tried everything to stop it, every possible way. But I used a deflection strategy. I waited until the last moment to actually make the announcement. Until then, they thought someone else was going to buy it. But when they saw me buy it, then they panicked. And they said, shit, we can't allow the largest media house in print in this country to be in the hands of this guy. This guy, he's an African booty, as they say. He likes black people. If we put the media house in his hands, he's going to turn the narrative against us. So since then, they've launched campaign after campaign. I mean, the idea is to tire me out. For me to say eventually, you know what, it's not worth it, man. But I don't, I fight because, yes, I do take what Madiba said seriously, because I do carry that mantle. It's an important mantle that our freedom is not for sale, no matter if I lose everything.
So what about us as podcasters, because it's a new medium? Should we be scared?
If you get big enough, you should be scared. The moment you start being influential, the moment you start having an impact on society, the moment young people start following what you're saying, then they'll come for you, for sure. Make no bones.
They're going to start with the banks.
Well, the banks, if you say something, just the very fact that you're having this interview with me, the banks could shut you down. Because the banks have absolutely...
Hey, clean my Hey, my man, I need my bank account.
Law unto themselves.
And
you can see how scary it is, right?
Scary, man.
It's scary, right? I mean, the bank shut the account of my 83-year-old mother. What did she ever do? You know why? To teach me a lesson. To say, you dare to take on us a 5 trillion rand, 5-6 banks in this country, that's their asset base. You dare to take us on, we will teach you, Dr. Survé, a lesson. And every black person in this country will know their place once we've dealt with you.
Before we go to the banks, which publications should us as young people listen to? Which ones are still on the right track and are not part of the establishment? Because there's so much fake news out there.
I think, first of all, I'm going to push our own publications.
Of course, okay.
I'm going to go say IOL.
Yeah.
Why? Because, if you look at our publications, our
shit, and IOL shows us love, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do,
actually. Yes.
Because you see, because our journalists, our editors reflect the demography of our country. And if you reflect the demography of the country, you talk about where you're coming from, what's relevant, what you're engaging with, what concerns you, the communities, where all our parents come from. I came from humble beginnings, right? So do you,
So
I guess.
it's IOL on TV? What music network?
There's nothing there.
TV, nothing.
There's nothing. It's all gone. With a few exceptions on SABC, 1 or 2 people like Sakina and others.
Okay.
But in general, ENCA is a Rupert HCI thing, right? Let's be honest about it. Newsroom Africa is owned by Naspers. It is a proxy for Naspers. It's nothing else. What is there out there? The radio stations are all...
Prime Media, forget
it.
about
Forget it, right? So we the only... You see, the problem is we are the only large-scale media left that is prepared to give a voice to the voiceless,
of course,
to the poor, to our communities, right? And to say the things we say. That's why they have to deal with us. Because it's just a matter of time before they deal with me. I mean, really, it is because the system, we're up against a system. We're up against a neo-apartheid, neo-colonial system that has emerged.
Because I believe, like, whenever they start commissions, it's always to attack
Of course it is.
the person, you know what I mean?
It's always been, it was, who did the first commissions to attack? Was the Boers during apartheid. If you just go back, you'll see that is what P.W. Botha did. That is what Forster did. That is what de Klerk did. They established commissions to deal with their own guys in the system. Post our liberation, the current president establishes commissions not to get to the facts. He establishes commissions to deal with his political opponents.
So do you think they started the PIC commission to attack you?
100%. It was a desperate attempt to see if they could find something. But it wasn't, they could find nothing.
You didn't steal any money from
Of course, 100%. They know that. But the issue is not whether you're corrupt or not. What the issue is here is if you can tarnish the person with the brush of corruption, if you can even just suggest it. You know when banks close your accounts, MacG.
If they send you a letter, what does that look like? Do they send you a letter?
The letter says, look, we elect, the law in this country says that a bank can decide to close your account anytime.
Wow.
That's what the law says in this country. No one has challenged that law until I started to challenge it, because it's based on what they call the 2010 Predicam judgment. But they say, you know why, Dr. Survé? Because we don't like the fact that you appear in the media all the time.
Wow.
But of course, who writes in the media about me? Not me. I don't write about me. It is my detractors. And so it's organized, you see. They fund that media. Their shareholders are the shareholders of that media and the banks. So together they write all this bullshit. Then they take all of that and they say, no, there's a reputational issue for us as a bank, and that's why we're terminating your account. They say, having looked at all our bank accounts and everything, we know we have never accused you or any of your companies of corruption, money. I can send you the letter. You can see it from these banks. They say that. But you know what? Because we can, we're going to shut your bank accounts because we can. And in your case, we're going to make sure no bank banks you. And that's why we took them to the Competition Tribunal, who found that the banks acted collusively against us. And that's what the system does.
How powerful are these banks?
They're extremely powerful because they are controlled by the very people that control this economy. You have to understand that. These banks, we have no democracy. We have no civil liberties. Our civil liberties, your civil liberties, the civil liberties of young South Africans, black and white, has been taken away by these banks. Because without a bank account, you can't pay your medical bills.
Can't do shit.
You can't do shit. Right?
Nothing.
And so it's very important to understand the strategy, right? So what most people do, so they shut thousands of people's bank accounts. 99% of those are black people. But you know what they do? They're going to shut your bank account. You're going to be quiet. You're going to quickly run from the one bank to another. You try and open up another account. They shut your account. You run to another one, right? And so you hope no one hears about it. Right? That's what most people do. By
Is there a bank that we can trust? I mean, we're told Time Bank is owned by Motsepe, but...
No, but it still has to use the big bank system. So ultimately, you have to use the system, you see. So this is the problem, Sol, that they control everything. And as South Africans, we must rise up against this because they're taking our freedom away. What's the use of having political freedom if you don't have the right to exist? For you to have the show, you must be able to pay people.
Of course.
You have to buy equipment. You have to pay rentals, to receive advertising. Now, we're a business with almost a 10 billion revenue, by the way, right? My salary bill per month, what do you think it is,
It's
Mac?
crazy.
Tell me, what do you think?
No.
Tell me, come on, guess what?
So
What's
100
per
billion.
month?
What did you say? Yeah, how much you making here? 10 billion? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that's our revenue. So what do you think is our salary bill per month?
I say 100 million.
Another guess.
Penduga?
Man. How many people you employ? 10,000.
10,000. But there's 40,000 as well externally.
Oh,
I'll tell you. It's 200 million a month.
Fuck.
Right? That's the salary bill. Okay? And then we procure...
Why are you coughing now?
He's working for the wrong company.
He's working for the wrong company.
He's working for the wrong company. This is one.
Without bank accounts, we can't pay them.
200 million
per month. That's
Every
the
month.
Then we have to buy products and services, procurement, another 500-600 million a month.
Whoa.
Right? Because remember, we have businesses.
Of course, yes.
We have 30-40 IT companies.
Yes.
We have this, we have that, etc. So that's the way they want to destroy us. Media businesses. In the media business alone, we employ just
and
on
without a
2,000.
bank account, you fucked.
That's their strategy with me. They can't do anything.
How come they've never used law enforcement against you? Because they tried to do that.
Because what have I done wrong? They admit we've done nothing wrong.
And you're employing so many black and white people. They don't give a fuck about that.
No, they
These
don't
are
care.
innocent black livelihoods.
Oh, they don't care.
You are spot on. They are heartless and they are cruel. You see, you know why?
That is
because
messed up.
predominantly it's black people. They don't care shit. These bank executives don't care shit.
How evil are these guys?
They're evil. Because you see, they want power. They want to loot and they want to keep the capital amongst themselves in this country. And the problem with this thing is that all South Africans, black and white, are going to wake up one day with having no civil liberties. This is what happened in South America with the juntas, in Brazil, in Chile, in Argentina, where the juntas took...
Oh, shout out to Chile, by the way. They just, the president now is 34 years old, bro.
Watch what I'm going to tell you now, right?
Shout out
They will get rid of Julius.
Shout out Chile.
They will get rid of others in the ANC.
Julius?
Of course they'll get rid of him. It's just a matter of time.
Yo.
Right now they can't immediately, but over time they will, right? If you just told me they haven't, he can't get a bank account for his son.
Yeah, for his son.
That's
Yeah, he
just the
said
beginning. You see, with me, they've got to deal with me because I'm internationally respected, right? I've won more awards, been recognized more than any other South African other than Madiba. Even recently, which is quite funny, the Russian foreign minister at the BRICS summit, Sergei Lavrov, you know Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, came and he gave me the award for cooperation between the countries of Russia and BRICS, etc. Wow. And then people said, and if you saw, he said I was a legend and, in the world. So globally, I'm very well respected. I mean, our group is one of only about 20 South African companies that are World Economic Forum members that go to Davos. So in a way, we're part of the elite ourselves, but we're not part of the establishment because, you see, we do what we do. Our wealth is to do social good, right? Our wealth, you see, I don't play golf. I don't have Ferraris. I don't have boats.
Why don't they just get you assassinated?
They tried so many times.
For real?
I can send you the front pages of the newspapers. I have to walk around with bodyguards and all these kind of things. No, they've tried. I mean, it's like, I think it's 4 times.
Jeez.
I mean, crime
What do you mean 4
intelligence,
times?
4 times. Go to crime intelligence, check with SAPS, check with these guys. They still invest. They tried to poison me with cyanide.
No way.
They tried to poison my cars. They tried to have 2 guys come into my apartment and at 2 a.m. in the morning. The last time was 4 guys just in my parking lot. And it was an absolute miracle I survived. I think it's because I've done so much good in my life. That I was coming out of the lift and I saw a car parked next to my car. And the bodyguards were actually upstairs. And as I came out, I saw these guys with guns,
Fuck me.
And I was 4 meters from them. And I just quietly turned around, got back in the lift and up, and they sped off. Right. And they got 2 of the guys. But again, you see with all of these things, but look, it is what it is, right? At the end of the day, people like us who resist the system, at the moment, it's very difficult. Now, their strategy with me is to tarnish me, right? So if they can't kill me, they got to tarnish me.
Hey, no, this is
damage my
I need a pee,
reputation.
dog.
Yeah,
It's a lot, man. I need
It's
to
too
pee.
much, man.
I'm just gonna go to the toilet. Yeah.
I think I'm going to come and join you. Should have a show where I can take you through every time they tried to assassinate me and how I survived.
Wait, please start from there. Are you recording?
Yeah,
And you can
I'll
start
come
from
and do
there.
that show with you.
So you're saying, yeah?
You should have
I'll
a show.
give you a show because it was all captured in the front page of the newspapers, by the way. I'm telling you stuff which happened. Crime Intelligence has all the reports on all of this stuff. So, but, it's a show on its own. I'll come back to that.
Yeah, but Dr. Iqbal, I want to understand, man. Why go through all of that? You've made your money. You're 60 years old. Got a new kid on the way. All the money in the world. Why still continue? I mean, why don't you just say, okay, cool, guys. It's all right. I get it. It's fine. I'm going to stop. No more.
Just fly to Dubai, relocate your family.
Yeah. Fly to the sunset. Yeah.
Look, that's what they want me to do. Let's be honest. They want me to get out.
What's the movie's mic? Is it fine?
They want me to get out. They want me to give up because they've said so. If you leave the country, you hand over independent media, you don't fund leftist causes, human rights causes, social justice causes, we'll leave you alone. They've sent so many emissaries to come to me to say that, but I'm stubborn, right? I'm from the Mandela era. I believe in freedom, real freedom. I believe, my hero is Che Guevara. I'm one of the few guys that received recognition from Fidel Castro. I mean, I've received recognition all over the world, from the Chinese, from Castro. Absolutely.
You've met him?
Yeah, of course.
No way.
Yeah. I was involved in the South Africa doctor exchange program, for the Cuban doctors.
How many presidents have you met?
A lot. I mean, but also to show you how non-aligned I am, even President Clinton has given me many awards. The Queen of Spain recently gave me an award for international friendship, one of the top awards.
That's insane.
Called IFA. The Queen of Sweden.
Barack Obama?
I've met Barack many times, yeah. Wow. Yeah. I've met him, but he hasn't given me any award.
Yeah.
But Clinton.
Cool guy, yeah?
Yeah, I was one of the first guys that Clinton appointed to his board in 2005 when he left the presidency. Jesus. So, I'm non-aligned. I'm not for East or for the West.
Yes.
I'm saying I'm for what is good for our country and our continent.
So what do you have to say about the naysayers that say, you're not black, stop trying to act black, you're in bed with the ANC, you've got delusions of grandeur, what do you say to people that say all those things?
It's exactly what you said, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how people label you, right? The old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, names will never hurt. It's what you do that matters, MacG. Forget about what people say about you. It's what's important is you must know who you are, and you must know what you believe in, and you must know what you want to achieve. Doesn't matter whoever says whatever about you. Just focus on what you are and what you want to achieve. What I want to achieve, someone once said to me, Dr. Survé, you're a billionaire, okay? And I said, no, that's bullshit. What's more important for me is saving 1 billion lives. That is what matters. If you want to put something on my tombstone one day, you must say, this man has impacted on 1 billion lives. Not that he had $1 billion or whatever it is. That's irrelevant, man. I mean, if you're doing business to make money, then you're crazy. You must do business because you're an entrepreneur, because you love the energy, the technology. I've been the first tech investor in South Africa. I was one of the first investors in Tesla. I don't know if you know that.
Wow.
Yeah, at the early stage of Elon Musk. I mean, I was one of the first. When I invested in Tesla, there was no such thing as electric car.
Yes.
I was one of the first investors in Amazon.
Wow.
Today we have the second largest e-commerce company in South Africa.
Which one's that?
Loot is owned by us.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah.
Shout out, man.
It's our business.
I don't know it, but it sounds dope.
Yeah. No, it's like Take a Lot. That's the competitor, the Naspers competitor.
But, and I realize what you do is that you go into these white-dominated industries and want to compete against them.
Totally. Every single industry we're up against the white guys.
Even with the fishing story is crazy.
All the other guys, I mean,
Do you know about the fishing story?
I don't know the fishing story.
Please explain to him the fishing story.
Well, look, we acquired Premier Fishing and all the other companies at the time. In fact, I can tell you the story, which is very interesting. So all the white companies at the time right? Because they realized now we're in a new South Africa post-94. They went as always to the Black Beauty Parade. And they said to the guys, okay, we're going to sell you 10%, 15%, 20% of our company and we'll fund it, do all those things, etc., like the B funding. And so many of the big white companies ended up with black shareholders that owned between 5% and, say, at maximum 20%. And what we said, hold on. If you don't own the company by majority, you cannot determine the future of a company. You cannot determine who you appoint. You cannot determine the kind of community programs, social upliftment, all these kind of things, impact on society. So and the Premier Group was one of the biggest groups at the time in South Africa, was listed on the stock market. When I approached the Premier Group and they wanted to sell us Premier Fishing, of course it started, well, we'll sell you 10% of the company. And I said to the guy at the time, Doug Band, who was there, I said, no, I want to buy the whole company from you. He looked at me, he laughed. He laughed. He said to his guys at the time, a lovely guy, I must tell you that. Yeah. He said to him, they're all white guys in the boardroom of Premier at the time. He said, look at this guy. He walks in here, he says he wants to buy this entire company from us. Is he delusional? Has he got delusional grandeur? So then I said to him, why not? He says, okay, we are prepared to fund you guys to buy 5%. We're going to vendor finance you. You don't have to go find the money. You are giving up the right to 5% of this business and coming here with your bullshit that you want to buy the whole company. I said, well, why not? Can you tell me why not? This is not core to your business. You make the breads, the Premier Group, there's all that stuff. You have all this massive conglomerate, billions and billions on the stock market. What is this small company, a few $100 million in your portfolio? So then he says to me, and it became a game. He says, okay, I'll give you 30 days to go raise the money to buy this company. But if you don't raise the money to buy this company, then you're going to lose the opportunity to participate in the 5%, as part of the BE scheme. 30 days later, I delivered a check for the company.
Wow.
30 days later. And that is what's the difference with us and everyone else. We control our companies, you see, so we can effect the changes. I did not do what lots of black guys bought into media. Cyril Ramaphosa himself bought into what is today Arena.
Didn't he try to buy Sunday Times?
Yeah, the Sunday Times group, but they own 20%. Toko Sequali also bought into them. And a few other guys tried. The problem was all of them bought minority stakes.
So why does Pravin Gordhan hate you so much?
Well, you see, I'm not a Stalinist, okay? The ANC at its core is a Stalinist organization. I love freedom. And frankly, I think Pravin has a problem with Africans, but maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I see it, because he seems to only appoint white people to key positions. You look at Eskom and look at who messed up Eskom, the Director, for example, messed it up completely, right? Brian Molefe, when he was there, did a fantastic job. The issue with Pravin Gordhan and myself goes back to three things. Firstly, I'm not a guy that you can say, you better do this.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't believe you have any right to do that. We are in a democracy and I have a right to disagree with you. I have a right to differ with you. I have a right to my own opinion. So I'm not going to toe the line, right? So in that way, I guess I'm different to Pravin Gordhan. Pravin Gordhan is used to telling everybody what to do, including the president. Right? The second thing is one of my journalists, who's today an editor in KwaZulu-Natal, this was the beginning of the end of the relationship, if you can call it that. He, in fact, well, I didn't know this, but I got a phone call from Pravin Gordhan. It was 10 p.m. one evening. And it's very unusual because I don't have that kind of relationship with him.
Of course, yeah.
And he called me and he said, look, how are you? I said, I'm fine. He said, look, I don't normally fight with media owners, but one of your journalists is claiming that I have an account overseas in Canada with X amount of money, etc. So I said, which journalist is this and why? He says, this journalist, used to work for the Guptas, which is not true, by the way. But anyway, when they had a publication. So I called the journalist and I said, look, did you call Minister Gordon about something? He said, yes, and it was to do with this. And I said, well, do you have any verification on this? He says, no, I'm just busy investigating it, Doc. But that was the thing that, he realized that there's a possibility that our media could expose something. I don't think he had money in Canada.
Yeah, so why not just say, I don't have money?
Exactly. I said, why don't just tell the journalist that? The third, which is one of my editor-in-chiefs, appointed Piet Rampidi and Mzili Kazi to the Sunday Independent. Now, I was not involved in that decision, but the moment they got appointed to the Sunday Independent, Pravin Gordhan went around telling people that that is a declaration of war by me on him. Because remember, they were involved with this rogue unit story. So he's in this book called Connecting the Dots, where he says, I've aligned myself with the wrong people and I'll pay the price. He says that in the book, by the way. Just read it. This book, Connecting the Dots. It's published all out there. But you know what? I stand up to bullies. He's a bully. He's very well, and the thing with Pravin is that he's connected with the old state security guys. So he's got a very close relationship with the guys from the previous regime. Right. So so what's happened in South Africa today is the old apartheid spooks have aligned themselves with the new guys under Ramaphosa. If you look at Sydney Mafumati, for example, who is really effectively the Minister of Intelligence, just look at Sydney's history. That's all you have to do. That's all I'm going to tell you, right?
During COVID, what was your take as a medical doctor with the vaccines, with what happened to the PPE money? What's your take?
Well, I think they're two different things. But firstly, I'm a scientist, MacG.
Oh, okay.
So that's very important.
Okay.
So I've got 3 medical degrees. I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
Right? Including an American fellowship in sports, because I'm a soccer player. I'm a sportsman, so I did sports medicine.
Sure.
I love sport. Yeah. But so of course I believe in the vaccines, but I don't believe in the obscenity of profits from the vaccines. We were the first, and this is why we're hated by the establishment, because we were the first to break the story about the PPE corruption. We exposed the issue with Kusela Deko's husband and others. Now, had we not done that, in fact, when we broke the stories about the PPE corruption,
how much money was squandered?
That particular contract was 150 million. But in total, 32 billion, according to the SIU, was stolen. So what people did, they...
Wait. 32 billion was stolen?
32 billion, absolutely. It's well
that
done.
was meant for the people.
Of course. And you see, what happened is, when we exposed the story, powerful politicians called me. Very powerful. I'm not going to name them here right now. And they said to me, please don't continue to write about this PPE corruption. So I said, firstly, I'm not the journalist and I'm not the editor. But I can tell you, as the media owner, I will continue to encourage my editors and journalists, because what you are doing is wrong.
So people are dying.
Exactly. You see, I said this.
Black people
are dying.
I said the people that are suffering because a mask costs 10 Rand and you're charging the hospitals 300 Rand per mask. Are you mad?
Yeah.
I mean, poor black nurses, black doctors, black patients, the poorest of the poor. Do you not have any shame that you participate in this corruption, right? And it is poor people who suffer. And it's our duty to protect the poor. Because the poor cannot protect themselves.
Saul was saying it because we were recording during COVID. He was saying, I was like, there's no way the government will steal money while people are dying. There was a count on the news of how many people are dying every day.
But
you're telling me they were eating.
They were eating, whether it was with the vaccines, whether it was with this. I'm going to tell you a story now, which you must believe me, right? So about 30 comrades friends that I have known in the struggle, from the days of the struggle, came to me during this period of COVID, just before that, and said to me, look, Doc, we need like 10 million, right? We need 30 million. We need 40 million. We need 5 million. And I said, why? I said, well, you know what? We are going to buy the stuff from X, and then we're going to sell it to government. So if you give us, and this is what the one guy said, I'll never forget. He said, if you give us 40 million, right? Listen to me carefully. We're going to make 1 billion, Doc. And we will give you back in 3 months' time, 100 million. And this was a comrade, huh? This was the guy that I respected. And I said to him, and I said to all of these guys, I said, listen here, aren't you ashamed? We fought in the struggle. It wasn't the struggle about black and white. The struggle was about justice for our people,
freedom,
for a better life, for housing, education, opportunities. You know, are you not ashamed of what you're doing? You know, if you came to me and says, Doc, give me 40 million so I can help the hospitals to get the products, I'm going to make a 10, 20% markup. It's okay. Because, you know, as an entrepreneur, you got to do some stuff. But you can't do these things. And I was disgusted by how many of my comrades, and I said to every single person, what I did personally is, just, you know, I donated, I think, about 20 million PPEs myself. As I donated.
The president didn't mention it in his speech. He only mentioned
we donated. Yeah. We, you know, and the point is, you see, this is where we have lost our way, right? And people like myself, we're the conscience, MacG, you know, we're the conscience of our country. And if you ask me, why don't I give up? It's easier to give up. But who is going to be left to fight, right? Who is going to be able to defend our people? And I have hope in our people, right? I'm not an idiot. I'm not a pessimist. I don't want to be a martyr. I want to live, by the way. That's one thing I do want to do. I want to live and, you know, and all these things, etc. But if enough of us stand up, if young people in this country stand up for what they believe in, for their rights, and demand from whoever the right to exist and the right to have the future of this country.
I hear what you're saying, but there's no leader in sight, man, that we can rally behind. I mean, I speak for myself. I look at what's happening now. I'm like, okay, who do you go behind? Because there was Ntlantla Lax who we thought, okay, cool, this might be our leader. He's colluding with the same guys.
Don't look at a personality.
No, but I'm saying, so, you know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean, yeah.
As a young person, like you're saying, how do I do that now?
Look at the social movement.
Okay, how do I do what you're saying now?
Get people together as young people into a social movement, right? And let's not focus too much on issues of celebrity and this and that. Let's focus on, this is our country. Let's take it back. Let's become serious. We must live life. We must have fun. We mustn't not go to parties and not do things and have. No, of course we must do that. Because if you're young, you must do that. You must enjoy life at the same time. Eat well, do that. But at the same time, we have a responsibility, right? And you must be courageous. You must be resilient. And you must be innovative in your
I think as young people, we're at a point now, I might be wrong, you'll correct me, we feel very despondent because we've been failed so many times that now, instead of trying to rectify the mistake, we're looking at alternatives. So it's like, all right, cool. That's not going to change. Nothing's going to happen. The elites will still do whatever they're doing and nothing's going to change. Like, I feel like we don't feel like we can impact anything in any way.
You can.
Do you get what I'm saying? So
No, 100%.
If you...
Because like let's say we vote out the ANC, somebody else is going to eat.
Yes.
Because they're going to be part of, you see, you spoke of that triangle where it's the capital, it's the media, and it's the politicians. We remove these politicians, they're still under the pressure of this media that's falsely going to report on them or that can sabotage them. Then there's this capital that has way more money than they could ever imagine. So then they're always going to collude with them regardless of who we put in there. So, I mean, these are the guys you fought with in the struggle, who lived for the same purpose and the same ideals as you, and yet they are corrupt and rotten, as you've just demonstrated. So we feel like it's going to be like that with anyone who promises us the world right now.
So the best thing to do is make Amapiano and get international gigs.
No, but the thing is this. MacG, that's true. But the point is this. Don't put your faith in an individual. Don't put your faith in a political party. Don't put your faith in me. No. Put the faith in yourself. Have a determination to change. You are influential. Young people are influential. Get young people together and say, let's have a convention of young people. The brightest of us come together in different fields. And we say, I'm saying from us,
of course,
in a colloquial sense. Yeah. I'm not young, but I'm making the term.
Sure.
Right? Come together and say, this is our country. We create a social movement. This is what we want. And we demand accountability. Do not take away our civil liberties directly or indirectly, our freedoms, etc. And we demand a better life for all of our people. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Youth unemployment right now is sitting close to 70%. And it's majority African unemployment. That's unacceptable. Not in our society. When this is a $400 billion economy, there is no way that must be allowed. Not today, not ever. So what we got to do, though, is we got to get serious, right? And serious doesn't mean not having fun. No, I'm not saying that at all.
Of course.
I'm saying serious means let's understand what we want. Let's you're influential. I'm on this show because it's a call to action, not about me. It's a call to action for young people in this country to stand up for what you believe. Don't believe the bullshit that politicians tell you. Don't believe the bullshit that business people tell you.
Media.
Right? At the end of the day, this is your life. This is our life. This is our future. And if you don't take control of that future now, then for the next 30, 40 years, Sol, as you said, it's a vacuum. Don't allow others to fill this vacuum. And don't listen to their nonsense, right? This is the power of being young. You have more energy than I have.
Fuck.
You have more common sense than I have.
You're right, man. I was chatting to a friend of mine because I have no aspirations to be like rich, right? I see money as a means to an end, right?
Exactly.
Right? So I'm chatting to this guy. He's in the political sphere. I'm like, no, this money thing, it's cool, it's whatever. But it's like, you got to understand how having money is so important because it gives you the room and the not freedom, but the acknowledgement or acceptance to be in rooms where you can affect change for like your kid and your kid's life. So basically, money. Like when they're doing those PPE deals, if you have money, you can be in that room to be like, guys, we can't be eating from PPE money. You know what I mean? Whether they listen to it or not, but you need money to get inside those rooms. So now I'm trying to make money so I can get in those rooms to tell the niggas, chill, guys. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm very bad with words, but I'm trying to explain.
I know what you're saying.
Yes.
But let me shape the thinking a little bit differently for you.
Okay.
You don't need money to make a difference. Lots of people don't have money and they make a difference. The young woman that, looks after a baby, has no money, makes a difference. The man that has no job but is able to give a sandwich to someone. You see, it's in your mind at the end of the day. What does money mean to me, a guy like me? As I tell you, it means I can walk into a supermarket, I can buy whatever I want. I don't look at the price. I can go to a normal clothing shop and buy what I want. That's all. But what it does do, it gives me independence. I'm not captured, as Malema says, by the Stellenbosch Mafia. Our group hasn't got a single bank loan for 12 years. Do you know that? So we are not owned by white capital. We've never been owned because we build businesses that are cash generative, right, over time. So money gives you independence. Money helps you to strengthen your resolve to make a difference. It's a means to an end. But don't live for money itself. It's okay to have a nice car.
Of course, yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to go out once in a while, to drink a bit of this and a bit of that, have the great restaurant, to dress up beautifully. Why? Why must we be denied that? Right? The elite don't deny their kids that. Why must we deny our kids that? It's bullshit.
Of course.
But let that happen as part of an overall strategy to actually make a meaningful difference. Because we must not rest until our country is truly free. And truly free is not just political voting. Truly free is economic and social liberation. And you know what's the most important definition of freedom? Can you guess? The right to dignity. Until all our people, our mothers and fathers and our grandparents have been given that right to dignity that they should demand, because this is their country, this is our country. We must, they must be respected. To see what's happening to ordinary people on the trains, on the taxis, it's crap, it's bullshit. Right.
And we're kings.
And the point is, in our rural areas, there's no water, there's no this, there's no that. In our urban communities, this is bullshit, man. Not in a rich country like this. It is not acceptable. And we must demand this, you see. Our parents, the generation, are tired. They're fatigued. They don't want to fight. But they also put too much belief in these politicians, in these parties. No, it's what we must demand. And accountability happens at the very municipal level, at the local level, in our community. You build from the bottom up. No Messiah is going to come from anywhere. But people like myself will continue to fight. I hope my fighting doesn't cost me my life. I hope that it inspires others to say it is possible to fight the establishment. But fight not for the sake of fighting, not fight for money. No, because I have enough money that I can live for 100 years, right? The issue is I'm fighting for freedom.
Beautiful.
The most important thing is freedom.
Penduka, any question you got?
Oh, who are you voting for next year?
It's a very difficult. The ANC has disappointed me. I've grown up in the ANC. This is not the same ANC. This is the ANC that is foreign to me. This ANC has gone into a Faustian pact, with the devil. And it sold out our people. And I look at what's happening on the ground. So I cannot find it. I always look at what Madiba went through and others went through. And I say to myself, thank God they're not here today.
What do you think about load shedding?
Well, I think load shedding, Eskom, you see, it's a very fundamental thing. Institutions, whether it's business, SOEs, are about culture. The black engineers at Eskom were overlooked by people like Pravin Gordhan and others. They were made to feel like they were thieves. Were made to feel that they were corrupt. They were made to feel they were incompetent and useless. But it is those black engineers that kept the lights on at Eskom all the years. Eskom is in this mess today, not because of black engineers. It is in the mess today because it started when Afrikaners decided, against the wisdom of everybody, that they can build the largest power stations in the world in Kusile and Medupi. That was an Afrikaner blueprint. And the companies, that have benefited from that are the Americans. There's a company in America that to date has received more than 40 billion, right? And Eskom is about a looting system. It is about, look, when Ramaphosa became president, a confidant of mine said to me, the aim of, I call it the cabal, was to loot South Africa with R1 trillion. I said, you must be joking. The Guptas were thieves at the end of the day. But they were small time, okay? And I said, R1 trillion, how the hell are these guys going to pull it off? And they said, this is the blueprint. Do you know, I want you to look at one article. If there's no newspaper article you ever read in your entire life, I want you to look at one article, which was published in 2019, I think it was. It was a front page headline. Do you know what was the headline in 2019? We're now in 2023. The headline said, Ramaphosa is going to essentially destroy the ANC and then take it into a partnership with the DA. 2019. The second thing that article said is that all state-owned enterprises are going to be sold off to their friends, including Eskom. 2019. Do you now understand why they hate me so much? Because we were able to say what was going on in the smoke-filled rooms of this administration then already. The plan was, you know why? They want to sell off the state-owned enterprises. SAA was sold for 51 rand. Come on. If you remember, like I do, every year SAA was Africa's best airline for I don't know how many decades. Right? We were proud of seeing SAA
51 rands
in after our liberation, to see our flag, to see our airline in international. When I was in New York and I saw the SAA aircraft with our flag, our new flag, not the old one, right? It gave me joy. I'm proud of my country. Now, we don't have a bloody
So
airline.
where do you think, 2019 you predicted that, where do you think we're going now?
I can send you that article. You want to have a look at it?
Please, man.
Yes.
I'm going to send it to you. You must look at it.
5 years time, where we going?
We are entering a junta state, a mafia state, where all power will be in the hands of a political economic nexus, which is made up of the ANC and elements of the DA. It's made up of other parties. It's going to happen, and the country will be carved up, and capital in the form of the guys that were there during apartheid will be further strengthened. The media will be totally controlled by them. It's just a matter of time before they get rid of us. Just a matter of time. Hopefully not me, but get rid of us. The intelligence service have been taken over completely. And of course, they've even got a cybersecurity law. So we're now entering the most dangerous phase. During apartheid, it was in a way easy to see who was the oppressor. It had a white face to it in many ways, although there were black oppressors too. Let's not forget that. Today, it's very different because your oppressor has a different face and is in partnership. So the guys in the background, and this all sounds like conspiracy theory, right? But have a look at the 2019 front page article. Everything in that article that we predicted, this is 2023, is happening today. And I'm saying to you that if people like myself are dealt with, which is what they're doing right now, this country has a huge problem ahead of it, unless young people like you and others stand up. Because I can't do this on my own.
Of course.
But we have to stand up together, and we have to not allow this to happen. I don't think that the ANC represents the aspirations of the country's people any longer. That is my view. And I say that sadly because I've grown up in the ANC.
So what's the difference between the Guptas and the Stellenbosch Mafia? What's the difference?
The one is just small, the other one is bigger. That's all.
Jeez, man.
I mean, what the Guptas did, I fought the Guptas. I was the one guy that fought them when they were the most powerful. When no one else fought them, by the way. I fought them because the principle was, JZ used to say to me, "Doctor, you never asked me for anything." I said, "No, because you're the president. I'm a businessman. We must have a line between us. I can advise you on BRICS. I was the BRICS chairman of South Africa and the 5 countries. I can advise you on the World Economic Forum. I can advise you on the UN Private Sector Forum, the G20, which I was participating in all of these. But at the end of the day, you must rule the country and you must rule it to the best of your ability, and you must make sure people benefit. My role is to be an ambassador in the business area for South Africa and to bring investment into my country and my continent. At the end of the day, what the Guptas did, you see, they were able to, by being close to JZ and benefiting irregularly in that process, they were able to show the guys that controlled capital during apartheid how easy it is to control a president. And these guys sat there and said, these Gupta guys, they came here selling shoes and other stuff, right, from the boots of the cars. And suddenly they became very wealthy. I mean, they made a couple of billion, let's just say 10 billion. I don't know what number they made. If they can control a president, we who have hundreds of billions.
I see.
So they put in a plan to control the next president, and it worked. They funded Ramaphosa. I mean, it's a fact.
They gave him the blueprint.
They gave him the blueprint, and they said, look, we get hold of him.
We're done.
And then we get hold of the media. And you know, they did it this way. Right now, if you're them sitting in a room, you're saying, okay, the media, do we control everything? The intelligence guys, no. There's only one guy we don't control. That's big now. Of course, they don't control you, but that's, Dr. Survé. Independent media. Okay, shit, we better get rid of him. In the capital, I mean, have we taken care of all the black guys that can potentially put up a fight? No. It's only one guy that we can't. He doesn't want to listen to us. We've tried. Who's that? Oh, it's Survé. He's got the ability to fight us with his capital base. Oh, shit, okay. Have we taken care of the international networks? Yes, we have. Except for one guy. He was chairman of BRICS, chairman of this, chairman of that. He's got an international network. So, okay. So then you can see I tick off the boxes, right? What about intelligence? Okay. Have we taken care of them? Yes. Which guy have we not taken care of? Because people are loyal to him because he was a struggle doctor. The intelligence guys, the black guys that are today there, they know him, they give him information. Okay, which guy is the Survé? So I tick off all the boxes, you see, for the guys, the white guys out there, the neo-apartheid guys, because they're behind Ramaphosa. They're behind Pravin Gordhan and working with them to actually do all of this.
Let's talk about BRICS, yeah?
BRICS is here. I mean, the one credit we must give President Zuma was that he took us into BRICS. BRICS is 40% of the world's population. It is the future. You can see countries are lining up to join BRICS. And during my tenure as the BRICS Business Council chairman, I made sure that South African businesses got involved, especially black businesses. I included about 50 other business entities from Africa. And we really created a fantastic BRICS organization. I mean, I had a secretariat of 30 people working for me, which I funded myself, by the way, because I wanted to make sure that BRICS is a success. I never took a cent from government doing that. I did it myself as the chairman of the BRICS Business Council. BRICS is a wonderful opportunity for us not to exclude the West. No, we mustn't do that. You see, we mustn't be silly to choose sides. What we must choose is what is right for us. And if we can take the best from China, Russia, India, Brazil, and the best from the USA and Europe, then we must do that. We must not be foolish enough to exclude for our country what is the best. I think it's so important. So the way to look at BRICS is, now we have a choice as South Africans and Africans that we can tap into the global politics, the capital markets, etc. In the past, we never had a choice. If you look at the way the West has treated Africa in its colonialist mentality, look at in West Africa, Central Africa, the people are rising up against the French. And the France doesn't have any gold. Yet France has more gold than the whole of Africa.
Jeez.
Fourth biggest in the world.
Exactly.
Gold reserves.
The richest man that ever existed, Mansa Musa, King Mansa, from Mali, was because of gold.
That guy was rich, eh?
He's only $400 billion. At the end of the day.
Black guy.
Yeah. So BRICS is an opportunity for us. But the heart of the Ramaphosa administration is not in BRICS.
I'm listening to you and I'm so dejected. I'm so deflated. You know when they say ignorance is bliss? I wish I didn't know any of this stuff, man. Because I feel like we're heading for doomsday, so.
Hey, Van, it's depressing.
We can't allow. That's what they want you to do. I'm only telling you this not to depress you, MacG. I'm telling you this so that you understand. You see, the first thing when we are trying to solve a problem as a scientist, understand what the problem is. Understand where the issue lies.
But I don't understand where the greed comes from, bro. Like, we all understand, okay, cool, in the world, there's corruption everywhere, in Russia, America, everywhere, right? But they get shit done. Yeah. So we're saying, like, all right, cool, eat whatever you're eating, but, like, can the roads work? Can we have electricity, bro?
You know, I tell you a personal story, because sometimes it's good to say a personal story. I grew up poor, and my dad was the eldest, and he had 11 brothers and sisters. And we lived in a 2-bedroom house. In 1975, how many people do you think were staying in that house? A small house now. I'm talking like
12, 15.
No, about 25. Okay. Right? But he educated everybody. He was determined. Many became doctors, many became lawyers, many became accountants, etc. He was determined that the best way to get out of poverty is through education. Not that we could afford. When I was one of only a handful of black students, and I mean a handful, out of a class of 200 at University of Cape Town, they only accepted 15 of us that were not white and no Africans, right? And there were no bursaries for us. And I couldn't afford to go to university. And I went to my dad and I said, you know, I got in to do medicine at UCT. And the first thing he said to me, well, son, I don't have the money for you. You'll have to go find the money yourself. There were no bursaries for for non-whites at the time. Eventually, I managed to get a bursary from the Institute of Race Relations, a half a bursary. And then I worked and a whole lot of other stories, etc. But the point I want to make is this. Coming from a poor background at the time, I saw the situation when, you know, my dad wanted to, because it was a very old home. It was built in the 1890s that we were living in, a tiny, you know, still the toilet on the outside, by the way. So when my dad wanted to move to a better home, he went to one of his brothers, who's a wonderful man, his younger brother, who was a doctor, who also came from the same poverty, but who became a doctor at the time. And he said to him, can you give me a little bit of loan to try and buy a house or something? Because no bank would give me any money, etc., etc. What do you think he said? He said, no, I have to look after my own family. And the point about it is that he, when he became a doctor, he was one of the few non-white doctors in the community, had built this beautiful big house, massive house. And it was fantastic for him. And he became an inspiration for me to become a doctor. So I thought, shit, if doctors have such big houses, maybe I also want to become a doctor as well. You know, it was something great. But the point is, you know, people justify greed in different ways. So for him, he was working hard, he was building his house, and they forget others. And my dad ended up going to loan sharks and borrowing money from loan sharks, which eventually killed him, right, to try and pay. You know what was the interest rate? My dad had to pay loan sharks. You want to take a guess? 60%. At that time, the what do you call the prime rate was about 20-odd%. And it killed him. And when my dad died, right, they came to take my mom's house, the loan sharks, until they made me sign. And I had no money, nothing. I had to sign take over my dad's debt, which I then had to settle, which at that time was 500,000 Rand.
How old are you at the time?
I was in my, I would say, just about under 30, So it was hectic. So I always say, you know, most people, when the parents die, except us, you know, we come from the black tax generation, you get something. In my case, I inherited my dad's debt.
That's insane.
Right? And the point is, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, people are greedy.
Why do you think people are greedy, so?
I have no idea, bro. Like you said, people have different reasons.
You're a billionaire, bro. What can you buy? Okay, cool. You buy a nice house. Check. Okay, several houses all over the world. Check. Private jet. Apart from that, what else can you get? Like, what else can you get?
Power.
You see, you justify things in various ways. People do that. When they're wealthy, I've seen the wealthy. I'm part of the elite.
Yeah, of course.
So I can see how the elite thinks. The elite is about the elite. It's not about caring about other people. A few people do that are wealthy. But, I've chosen to use my wealth, my networks, my resources to make a difference. To me, that is my testimony to my life.
No, but I'm saying, doctor, okay, what else is there?
In terms of what?
In terms of, you've got R1 trillion. What are you going to do with the R1 trillion?
Look, at the end of the day, people want money because they want to be able to say, I have so much money, I'm a billionaire, I'm a this, I'm a that, and I'm all of these things, etc. It's wrong. You see, it may be okay a little bit if you're in the US or somewhere, or in Europe, but not in a country like ours. You see, in a country like ours, you know what I like most about the taxi strike in Cape Town?
Yeah.
Must I tell you?
Tell me.
I mean, I saw this kragdadige DA deal with this. I'm not a fan of Santaco, by the way, just to be very clear, because, Rupert once went on television to say Santaco is my private army, right? If you remember the Given Makari show.
The power firm thing, yeah.
But that's not the point. The point is that the DA administration in Cape Town was impounding the taxis. And of course, all these guys said, you see, we've got to have rule, law and order, etc., etc., etc. But there are different ways of dealing with things. When the DA administration has a problem with white people, they sit down,
there's a community hall,
have a bit of this, have a bit of that. But the black people, they treat them with absolute disdain, right? But that's not the point I was making. The point is when the taxi strike happened, and of course, sadly, some people lost their lives, including a doctor, which was very sad. But a lot of people had to endure walking kilometers, poor mothers, that work as domestics in the white areas, had to walk 10 kilometers to get home, long distances, and all these things, and weren't paid by people, and all these things. But the thing that was strange for me was that every time I met someone, they said, there's no bread, there's no stuff in the supermarkets, we can't get anything. And so we don't live in an island, you see. That taxi strike meant that no food could be delivered to the supermarkets. No bakeries could be open. Things couldn't happen. And restaurants even closed early. I mean, I tried to go to a restaurant one evening and they said to me, sorry, we're not doing dinner tonight because the staff cannot be. You see, and the point about all of this is we do not live on an island. We must recognize we are part of an ecosystem of a society. And if you don't take care of everybody in your society and the most vulnerable, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter whatever, you will ultimately pay the price. But the most important thing, MacG, you must have a conscience. You must have a heart. You see, the people that are greedy don't have hearts. That's the issue. The best people are those that can combine the mind and the heart together to have a soul, right? That's what it's about. Now, it's a gift. Don't be despondent by what I've told you. Let it be inspirational because it's a gift to care. To care means that you're human. To care means that you want to see change. And to care means that you will eventually get change. It will take time. It will take a lot of resilience, a lot of courage, and sacrifice. At times, you must be prepared to sacrifice. But if you do the right thing, you'll be okay.
Doctor, thank you so much, man. We've got to let you go.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
In closing, what do you want to be remembered as when it's all said and done?
As a good family man, as someone who loves my dogs, as someone who loves people and who believes in the beauty of people, and as an Africanist, as someone that comes from this, I'm proud of my continent, proud of my people. Yeah.
Beautiful, man. We are here, podcast and chill. If our banks get closed, we're going to give you a call, ne?
Yeah, anytime.
You'll help us out.
Hey. Don't know can't even go to time. Hey, we're fucked. At the mercy, man, of what capital.
They'll first say to you, listen, if you want to keep your bank accounts open, you never ever allow Dr. Survé on your program ever again. You just say yes.
We out here, man. Podcast and chill. Boom.
Welcome to Black Excellence. Do not fear, for if you do, just sip on some grandeur. And if you still do, ask ourselves, what would Mapapunzi do? Parama chila, itlasha lefiki. Ungoyigi, even when they ask you, how sabi ini? Do not fear, for if you do, just say, Anistivi. This is the medicine of censorship. This is the pill. Which one is that one? Podcast and chill.